of that visceral fat.
So, Dr. Sean, I'd like to know, what were your steps in those bottom three pictures? What did you go to first and second and third? And then give us guidelines. And I'd like to get into talking about fasting, about intermittent fasting, but the guidelines for eating, like what in your mind lets you see this return from visceral fat to the change?
Okay, so the guidelines here is I ate whatever I wanted, processed foods, carbohydrates, and that was the outcome. And it's pretty much the case with everybody else. Right here is when I learned at this point about carbohydrates. And I started eliminating carbohydrates. And then I went paleo. Paleo was a popular diet around, I think in 2013. It was the single most Googled term on all of Google, more than anything
that was kind of meat centered, right? Meat centered and whole foods, so to speak.
A lot of meats, but a lot of vegetables and also fruit if it was more lower sugar. So I went paleo, but I learned about this from a pretty cutting edge, innovative 17-year-old kid. I was shocked when I found out this kid was only 17. I thought he was like in his 20s. But he got me to go paleo and to eat fermented foods. So I was very fortunate that he got me started on those fermented foods, because most people that go paleo didn't know about fermented foods. It's kind of just interesting side note. This young man was the former sidekick, Dave Asprey from Bulletproof, coffee. But Army, this young guy, did learn. And I think maybe Dave played a role to that extent. If Dave was very early into fermented foods and got Army to eat fermented foods, I have yet to see a diet improve people more than the carnivore diet.
Right.
But I still think that the carnivore diet is an imperfect diet. I mean, nothing is perfect, but my fault with the carnivore diet is it doesn't incorporate fermented foods. So I just know in my heart of hearts and anecdotally as a researcher that people improve based on the metrics, eliminating visceral fat, deep subcutaneous fat, organ fat, muscle fat, myosteatosis, and it optimizes superficial subcutaneous fat if they add in fermented foods. And it's not so much that the foods are beneficial, it's the microbes that come in with those fermented foods. It turns dead food into living food, and it optimizes the digestive experience. So these microbes are critically important. So one of the things I'll point out is here, I'm still eating paleo. Here, I go from paleo to keto. So you can see the influence of keto. And I went from low carb to very low carb. So keto typically is very low carb. And then right at this point, I go from very low carb keto to carnivore. And the only other addition that I'm eating, but no carbohydrates, is ferments. So I don't have any there are no carbohydrates of any consequence in fermented vegetables and fermented fruit if it's adequately fermented. And the way I tell that is it's got to have an incredible tang that it almost tastes like vinegar. And I'm so sensitive to anything sweet, any residual carb, that I will spit it out of my mouth rather than adding that and contributing in any way to my microbiome, any carbohydrates.
And we make our own fermented vegetables at home, and it's really pretty easy. It's not difficult. I know,
Same.
Do you too? In the modern world, of course, you can buy them.
Today, I recommend people, eat a meat-based diet, meat-centric diet. Carnivore diet is fine. And listen, vegan diet, I don't want to say it's fine. I will say that you should, if you're going to eat vegan, at least add in ferments and cut out all processed foods. But I will say this about veganism. From my experience working with VJ, the Hindu, the true, admirable human being from India who's eating, who's Hindu and is eating this vegan diet, that guy is getting better. That guy is clearly getting better eating a vegan diet. So to my carnivore counterparts out there, I really think it's unfair, and it's not an enlightened approach to say that, you know, vegans cannot be healthy, and that they can be at least more healthy if they adopt a strategy where they're eating, you know, healthier things. I mean, there may have been the case that there wasn't any meat around, and we would have had to consume vegetables. But I think our ancestors would have had the knowledge, experience, and instincts to have fermented that food to make it better, you know, healthier for us and less harmful. And so I continue to believe that vegetables in a non-fermented form and fruits, you know, have in the aggregate more potential for harm than benefit, and that those harmful aspects to them are improved through fermentation. But having said that, that's just my experience. And I will say, as a dedicated scientist, I reserve the right and want to change my opinion if science shows that I'm incorrect about that. So I would love to have more clients that would come and work with me to explore, like this brave vegan is doing, you know, VJ. And so I can track you and make decisions. Listen, if you're a wealthy man or woman out there, wealthy enough that you can afford to have MRI scans, why don't you come to our practice? We get the best results in the world, and let us help you make a dietary determination and lifestyle determination. And we will optimize anybody who's interested and become the best biological version of themselves. I don't want to say necessarily anybody, because we have to turn around. We get a lot of people that want to work with us, that we can't work with everybody. So we look for people that have the means to be able to do it, afford the MRIs, and also have the willpower, the motivation to do that out. I want somebody that's passionate about living the best quality of life that they can possibly live, understand that, and will adopt that kind of lifestyle. It fires me up. I'd love to be around those kind of people. And if you're a person that you're not interested in doing that, and you're just going to keep eating crappy food and falling apart, let me just tell you, you're a big drag to Dr. Sean. It bums me out. I don't want to work with you. I don't want to be around your mojo. You got some bad vibes, you know. But if you want to, you know, if you're filled with disease and you're like, I'm tired of this and I want to live a more healthy lifestyle, then you can come and work with me, and I will show you these tools and strategies to optimize yourself.
Beautiful. So your vegan client, you had him get rid of processed foods, and he's still on his vegan diet, but he's started including fermented vegetables.
He did. That was his big inclusion, was adding in those fermented vegetables. In India, they do have a fair amount of fermented vegetables, but India's problem is the problem that's going on in Korea and other Asian countries. So what is happening is traditional diets that traditionally always included fermented foods are being replaced and challenged by more modern day diets. So what we're seeing is younger Koreans and younger Indians are adopting more processed foods like breads and pizzas and muffins and buns and whatnot, and they're abandoning their practice of eating fermented foods. Like they have fermented dairy, I think, and other fermented vegetables in India, but a lot of the younger people are abandoning that. And India is a mess today. It's a wash with people that are obese. They have, chronic disease, a huge problem with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, and stroke. But the reality is microbes rule the world. We get choices about which ones we want to get inside of us if we're enlightened to the lifestyle that we want to live, that we should be living, so that we get more beneficial microbes inside of us that help us generate muscle and eliminate dangerous fat and overall obtain our health. But it's the reality is the single most important strategy that I work, I have my clients entertain and I work with them on is optimizing their microbiome.
Great point. Fabulous point. Dr. Sean, we've only got a few more minutes. I'd love to just share really quick and how much experience you've had with helping people out of prostatitis, because it just seems like a plague among men, and we got referred to Dr. Ken Berry, about a little over a year ago. Started keto because of that. And Dr. Ken Berry talked about insulin being the problem, creating inflammation. And my husband had prostate issues for 20 years. And he'd come to me and gotten on a vegetarian diet. We had been together about 5 years, 6 years. He got better and then he got worse. And we just said, there's got to be something different we can do. And we started keto. Within 4 months, he had no more prostate symptoms. And now he's gone completely carnivore, in the last 6 months, and he just keeps getting better and better.
A nice segue into the cardiovascular imagery that I talk about is to be able to start initially with the prostate. So my own experience is that I was a guy who has that inflamed face, a 48-year-old. I will, through confessions, admit that I was struggling with not only an inflamed and large prostate that was having me pee 4 to 5 times a night, getting up out of bed. Imagine how much sleep disruption I was getting. I had a client recently come to me who admitted that he was getting 10 to 20 times a night from an enlarged prostate, just a recent client. So it is an enormous impact on your lifestyle. You got to pee that frequently. And by the time I was 48, I no longer had a stream. I had a dribble. It was kind of a flow that would drop out of the end of my urethra, the end of my penis, and it would just flow down kind of like a fountain, a very weak, and it would trickle, and it sounded so demasculated. It sounded so weak. And I remember hearing that sound in my father when I was 16, when he would go to the bathroom, and I used to think, my God, what is wrong with him? That sounds horrible. And there I am peeing the same way at the age of 48. And then I go paleo with ferments. And that young man didn't say, well, Sean, if you do these things, you're going to start peeing better. All your disease will go away. He just told me you'll lose weight. That's all he was. This was 2010 or 2009 at the time. And so I had a big gut and I was getting heavy. And I thought, well, I'm going to start, I'll try this paleo thing with ferments. And within 1 year, even I wasn't aware of it, I'm standing in my bathroom and I'm peeing, and I've got this forceful stream. It sounds like Niagara Falls. And I'm thinking about, my God, I'm peeing like a man again, like a teenager. And then I remembered that I'm no longer getting up anymore to pee at nighttime. And I've told this story before in podcasts, but you'd think, the average person would be like happy, like I'm super happy. No, I was so freaking pissed off because I felt like I was ripped off and lied to and played by the system. Yes. Because in medical school, they just gave me drugs and I was taking all those drugs. Yes. And the only thing that kept happening to me, I was getting worse, and they wanted to go up and carve my ASS out and go up through, a roto-rooter job, and F that. Yeah. Get yourself healthy. Cut out what is causing the disease. Yes. And get your prostate and your body, all your body healthy. So now I'm peeing like I tell my clients, I think I could pee over a car. That's how strong my urine stream is.
And I think for women, prolapse for women is similar. Yeah. Those tissues, it's the exact same thing. And we see around a prostate is all this inflammatory fat, and around the female reproductive organs is all that inflammatory fat, visceral fat. And I'm so glad you brought up prolapse, because who doesn't bring it up is doctors. Right. Because that 50% of the women in the United States will be afflicted with prolapse organs, pelvic organ prolapse. 50%. It's ridiculous. This is a travesty. And they just wait till it's so bad that their uterus or their bladder is coming out of their vagina. Right. I have these older women showing up in the ER with this pink tissue mass coming out of their vagina. Like, what is this? Or just found this in my mother or whatever. And they'd have to go and get surgery. I mean, and the cause, visceral fat. It's just causing relaxation of all your pelvic structures. You get this mom, but so listen here. You're a 20-year-old, you're a 30-year-old, you're a 40-year-old, and you're a woman, you got a little bulge in there, you better wake up and get rid of that visceral fat,
before those organs and everything in your body starts falling apart. And
Yes.
you've got your uterus coming out of your vaginal canal. I mean, wake up. Your doctor's not going to tell you this.
That's right.
You're a lady. You're in charge of your body. You read about visceral fat and its connection to ovarian, pelvic organ prolapse. And if you're a man and your prostate is falling apart and your erection is weak and you're taking Cialis and Viagra and all these medicines, heads up. Look what's happened. We do these vascular structures and 6,000 people, we only did 20 of these brain scans towards the end because everybody said, my memory's better, I'm more intelligent, I'm not making mistakes.
Right.
What's going on in the brain? So when we scanned the brain, we saw clogged arteries. See that decreased blood flow right there? And this is the right middle cerebral artery. The left middle cerebral artery is so clogged right there, you can't even see any blood in there. And in 9 months, we opened up this doing our strategies. And well, I'm going to give you in just a minute after this. But look, we opened up that lesion in 9 months. And we did the same thing just this year in a client, big lesion in their right middle cerebral artery here. And in just 3 months, we opened that up.
Wow.
And we see visible pulsation. So arteries, you can see this throb of their arteries coming alive. No more like check to feel for a pulse if you find somebody down. No, you should see a pulse, but we're so diseased today, Carrie, that you can't see pulses because these fatty infiltrates get in the muscle, not only skeletal muscle, but the smooth muscle lining arteries and veins and capillaries, impairing the blood flow. So a big one, erectile dysfunction. So you get an weak erection. Here's what we learned. 6,000 people studying, open up their arteries. We get men, half of them are men, their erections get hard. But here's one I never heard. This one we figured out. Boom, boom, boom. Your erection, if you're a male, should bounce with every heartbeat.
Wow.
It should be bouncing. So that is an important sign of vascular health. If you don't have a bounce in your erection, you're wrong. You're diseased. Now, one question I don't have, because it should be studied, is whether clitoris, an erect clitoris, should also throb too. But nobody's doing these studies. The males are, they call me up and talk to me about my women clients. I haven't invited them to talk to me about their clitoral erections, but the males, they'll call me up and they'll tell me, I got the bounce, Sean. And they're very excited. Now, the bounce happens very small initially. And, when you're a 16, 17-year-old kid, it looks like this, and it just slowly goes away. And by the time you're a 48-year-old guy, you don't have that bounce anymore, and you got a soft erection. Or maybe you're a 60-year-old guy and you got a soft erection. Whatever age you're beset with erectile dysfunction. But blood flow is everything. And it gets mediated through visceral fat. And the best strategy is optimizing the microbiome. Yeah, okay, so the fat around the heart is called cardio fat, and I can pull those up too, besides the arteries.
And you'd think maybe a vegan vegetarian who's got visceral fat probably has fat around the heart.
They do. It always corresponds. We've never seen visceral fat without seeing heart fat. So it always corresponds. Same thing with muscle fat. If you got visceral fat, you got fat in your muscle, you got fat around your heart, and you're going to have fat around in your walls of your arteries, veins, and your capillaries, where all the magic happens, where all the blood and nutrients gets released through the exchange. So,
Dr. Sean, one of the biggest questions I'll have vegetarians ask me, because they've been so programmed over the years, is, oh, what about my cholesterol? Isn't my cholesterol going to go up?
I think it's the biggest distraction out there. Let me just cut to the chase. If you're listening, one person, can you name one person that has improved their cholesterol and it ever improved their life? The whole system is foisted upon doctors and their patients, thinking that all you got to do is improve your cholesterol. It's craziness. You should be paying attention to this visceral fat. It's got a direct relationship to disease. The cholesterol is all over the place. It's a waste of time. I hate talking about it.
Right.
Because when you talk about cholesterol, you distract from what really matters. Visceral fat, fat around the heart, clogged arteries, deep subcutaneous fat. These are the things that every time you eliminate, people get better.
Okay.
every single time. But when
Yes.
you fix cholesterol, nothing.
Yes. Thanks
Just
for that
make money
answer.
for the system.
Thanks for that answer. Advice to us, your list. What do you think about olive oil, butter?
Butter from the best animal possible. A grass-fed, grass-finished animal is going to produce a healthier animal product.
Right.
Olive oil, it's not like I'm really opposed to it, but if I get a choice between butter and olive oil, I will go with butter over olive oil. It's just something that that I'm kind of a little bit neutral on. Here are my strategies, and you can, if you're watching today, you can take a screenshot of those. And I put this on social media. These are the things that will reverse chronic disease, reverse visceral fat, reduce heart fat, reverse deep subcutaneous fat, help you put on superficial, beneficial, superficial subcutaneous fat, help you look better, help you live better. They're all really easy to do, except for these things here: optimizing the microbiome, nitric oxide, oxytocin, vitamin D, optimizing your sodium levels, your mitochondria, melanin, autophagy. These are, adiponectin. These are harder to do. They require intensive research. You got to get into the studies. But, your choices are this. I'll just cut to the chase. You can come to me and work with me, and I'll tell you how to do those things. Or you can work with my coaches. My coaches are a really good option. When you come to me, I'm a physician. My startup charges a lot more money. But our coaches that you can work with, you can get to through my social media, my visceral fat reduction specialist and health optimizing specialist. They can work with you on how to do these things, and it's a great option. But if you have more money than you have time, and time is more valuable to you than money, you should just come to me, and I will cut you to the chase, because you want to eliminate your risk in case you're going to have a heart attack next week and die. Not the fear monger, but I did have a client who showed up late for his MRI scan, and his assistant called me up crying and said, "John died yesterday." Literally the day before he was supposed to have his visceral fat scan, he dropped dead of a heart attack. So, the sooner you get started on, health optimization, the better. And this visceral fat is very much causal and associated with the biggest killers: heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and neurodegenerative disorders. So get started doing these strategies. If you have the financial ability to get MRI scans, come and work with me. And if you don't, you can take a more modest approach and maybe work with my specialist, who will coach you how to do these things too.
Awesome, Dr. Sean. That's awesome, awesome, awesome. How about a little bit just touching on intermittent fasting and fasting? I want to tell you this. I did just a 2-day fast. I was going to start doing 2 and then 3 and then 4 each month or every few weeks. I didn't know how often you like to do it or how you recommend it. But you know what? When I did that 2-day fast, it was so easy. It was a million times easier than when I used to be eating carbs all the time. It was like nothing, because I'm sure my insulin resistance had changed so much that fasting was like easy. And I heard you say a while back, women don't think fasting is for them. I think it is. I think it's a fabulous regenerative tool. But tell us a little bit about that. And
I agree with you. So your last point I'll hit first. Listen, females are 50% of our species. And there's no way women, our ancestors, did not fast. Now, it wasn't volitionally; it was situational. I mean, we would eat when we had meat to eat. There's a successful hunt, but there wasn't always food around to eat, and so we would have, by necessity, gone through extended periods of time, famine, starvation, deprivation, and we wouldn't have had access to that food. And it's during that time that our bodies acclimated, our species acclimated to being deprived caloric intake from food. As a consequence of that, we developed a very beneficial process called autophagy. And autophagy is this wonderful condition where our cells literally start cleaning house, and you start getting rid of this cellular debris that's a consequence of just living. And so autophagy is a fantastic benefit, and it's linear in terms of dose dependency with regard to it in fasting. So the longer you fast, the more autophagy you actually will get. And so it's maximized at about 60 to 72 hours. And so my recommendation for my clients over about 3 to 6 months is to get people to start fasting about 3 to 4 days every single week. So 3 to 4 day
Wow.
fast every single week is a huge investment, but with considerable returns. However, do not try to do a 3-day fast unless you're more like Carrie, that you've been, keto, carnivore for a while, because
Yes.
your dependency on carbohydrates are going to leave you feeling very weak and tired and discouraged. And the last thing I want to worry about is one human being having a bad experience fasting when it's so magnificently beneficial. It optimizes your microbiome, improves your cells, improves your mitochondria, gives you more energy, just makes your skin and your face and your body look so much better and perform so much better. So how should you approach fasting? Slowly increase it over about 3 to 6 months. Go from no fasting up to about 3 to 4 days. It's not a race. Health optimization is a journey. It's not a light switch. So you just slowly increase your fasting till you get to that point. You just can't overestimate the benefit that autophagy has on the human body. It's an imperative. I get every one of my clients doing extended fasting.
That's great. Well, Dr. Sean, I just want to thank you so much for being on with us today, answering that rabbit hole about the vegan vegetarian. I know there's a lot of people wondering about that right now, and this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, Carrie. I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you and your audience. And I wish you all the best, and I'd be happy to come back and do another show sometime.
Great. And we'll be following you on social media, on YouTube. Your videos are great. Such an excellent trail of information that you're putting out. And thank you for speaking your truth and for standing for what you know to be right. It's beautiful.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay. Adios.
Human now is the